What's up, guys? It's FallinWinter, and I'm here to do a deck profile for Chaos Breaker. Starting Vanguard right now is Dusthail Unicorn. I kind of like him just because with Break Ride, you can pretty much lock 3 units and pretty much prevent them from doing anything except for attacking with their Vanguard and boosted. It's just a really painful turn when your opponent pretty much can't do anything and you can guard them for like a 10k shield to 2 to pass. For the trigger lineup, oh, also this goes into soul when you use its effect, so it gives heal for Chaos Breaker. My trigger lineup right now is 6 criticals, 3 of the 2 different ones, and 6 straws, so 4 of this and 2 of these, and then the 4 heals. So I like this lineup just because I kind of like the sustainability, since the draw triggers work well in damage since they're defensive and you get a plus pretty much if you don't guard while taking damage. And it also helps you add cards to your hand for the Chaos Breaker effect to counterblast 1 Starvader and discard a Starvader from your hand to lock a unit. It's been working so far. You can also try running 8 criticals. That would also probably be beneficial because you can push earlier and try to get them to endgame as soon as possible. For the grade 1 lineup, you've got 2 of the Starvader Neons, the 10k attackers when you have a Starvader Vanguard. I just kind of like them in there just in case you end up with situations where you don't have grade 2s in front. And they're just disposable units you can ride. You've got 4 of the Palladiums, which on rearguard space, when an opponent's unit unlocks, you can counterblast 1 and put this unit into soul to relock the unit. These are great in this deck just because you can stall them another turn by relocking units, and if you happen to have Chaos Breaker, you can counterblast 1 when it unlocks, put this into soul, and still use Chaos Breaker's effect to draw a card. While the unit doesn't actually retire because it's relocked already, you can still plus off of it, and it keeps your units locked for another turn, which if you build enough soul, you can plus again next turn. And then we have, for the perfect guards, basic stuff, 2 of the Starvader Roar Eagles, which are 10k boosters when you have more units on field, which if you get all of your locking effects off, chances are you do. And it's also great early game because if you can ride Mobius Breath Dragon, chances are you usually have more units than them unless they rush you, which means your Mobius Breath is swinging for 19, which makes them guard for 15 if they do not want a unit locked. Then we got 3 of the Lanthanum, which is just the basic 7k rear guard, but when your opponent's rear guard is locked, due to an effect of yours, it gets +2, so it becomes a 9 or 11 or even 13, depending on how many you lock. These are just great rearguard boosters, and it's a nice rearguard backup if you don't get the Aurora Eagles, just because if you lock units, things will, you get the 10k rearguard boost anyway. For the grade 2 lineup, we've got 1 Starvader Colony Maker. It's just a nice second card because you usually have units locked in an endgame. If you happen to use the Palladiums that go into soul, the grade 1s, you can call this, and as long as you have a locked unit on your opponent's side of the field, you counterblast 1 and search out a grade 1 and call it to rearguard space. So you basically plus off of it for counterblast 1. Then we got 4 of the Mobius Breath Dragons, which are just great grade 2 rides, because if it hits while on Vanguard, you choose an opponent's unit and lock it. Any unit. So if they rush you and you happen to hit the next turn, you lock one of their front row. We've got 3 of the Niobium, which is a grade 2 version of the Lanthanum. So +2 when the opponent's unit is locked while this is on the field. It's a nice 11k or 13 boost on your Vanguard space, and you can scare your opponent into guarding to prevent some of your units from being locked if you have him on rear guard along with Mobius Breath on Vanguard. You have 3 of the Radon, which are the 12k attackers. These are just nice cards to have because you can leave them without a rearguards booster and they still hit 11k vanguards. For the grade 3 lineup, you've got 4 of the Infinite Zero Dragons, which are the Break Ride. You want as many of these in there as possible just because Break Riding into a Break Ride multiple times keeps at least 2 of their units locked, and that just stops them from doing a lot of things. And you usually want the Break Ride because with Chaos Breaker, if you can lock units without paying for Chaos Breaker's effect, that means you get to plus off of it completely because you didn't have to discard a card to get a card back. Then I have 2 of the Chaos Breaker Dragons, which are pretty much the focus of this deck and the main Vanguard. These plus insanely hard if you can get any of the lock effects off. They're just a great plus. You can end game have like 11 cards in hand while they're sitting there with like 6 or less. The only thing you really have to worry about is decking out and trying to build soul, because once you're out of soul, depending on what you have currently, you can't really plus anymore, and that becomes a problem. Although if you can get some of the effects off, usually you have some hand advantage which lasts you long enough to survive. And then I have 1 Nebula Dragon. I'm probably going to be running 3 Chaos Breaker, but for now I'm trying to see how well Nebula Lord works as a late endgame card when you don't have any more soul. You just ride him, and instead of worrying about plussing, you worry about pressure and endgame damage, because when he's limit break, you get +3 to your front row rear guards for each unit that's locked, and you can hit really hard numbers, and they just hurt a lot. This deck works great against any deck that doesn't really have outs to it. It does have problems against Narakamis and other decks that retire things just because they get rid of your field and you really need your field to work. Also, Revengers, if they play around this, they can pretty much only leave 3 cards on the field and eat it with Raging Form, and then they've got no rear guards on field and you pretty much can't lock anything. Other than those types of decks and the obvious Ezel Scissors and Monarch Alfred that aren't out yet, but when they do, these will kind of phase out. But until then, it's a pretty fun deck to run, especially when you can just keep locking their units and just get everything, leave them with nothing to attack with, basically. That's the entire deck. If you have any suggestions or you want to ask anything, just let me know and comment. Alright, that was FallinWinter. Later.